Madam Deputy Speaker, well, after listening to the member for Tharangara, I would seek to remind him about some of his colleagues who've been keeping police very busy. They're probably better off being tucked home in bed rather than going out and getting into biffo at the local nightclubs. So I think if you want to talk integrity, you don't have to look very far for some of the issues in your own ranks with members of the Labor Party in North Queensland who suddenly don't want to talk about recordings about their reminiscences of dodgy late nights out on the force, keeping our police busy rather than allowing police to get on with the job of looking after our communities. What a waste of time to have police having to look after dodgy Labor MPs who are on the source and not looking after the constituents. I want to address the issue of hooning, and this is at a crisis point in many communities. And on the Sunshine Coast, we have seen an absolute surge in people driving dangerously on the roads. I hear the story in other parts of the state as well. And when I've raised this with the Transport and the Police Minister, they'll say, oh, look at the legislation, which is over 12 months old. They're still saying, look at the legislation. And we see no evidence that it has been resourced, that the police have been resourced to go out there and apply the legislation. But it's also come to my attention, most concerningly, in regard to the lack of joint operations with transport officers and police. This bill before the parliament is about police legislation efficiencies and effectiveness amendment bill. One would think if you want police to be efficient and effective, you empower them and you resource them. You also allow them to work with other agencies who are also empowered and resourced to do their job. I've had transport officer whistleblowers blow the whistle on this government and say they are not allowed to go out and pull over light vehicles who are unregistered driving. They are not allowed to pull over people who may have a dangerous vehicle, a clunker on the road that potentially could kill other people, that they have been told they're not allowed to do this. Now, I am calling on the Transport Minister to explain. Has there been a directive given to transport officers not to pull over light vehicles to do their job to keep people safe on the road? Because that's what I'm hearing from whistleblowers who are saying they've been directed not to do it. And if we want the police to be effective, to be able to go out there and crack down on dangerous driving at a time when we've seen in some communities a record number of deaths on our road, we want them to be able to do it with the full force of the law, full resources and other agencies able to do their job. There should be joint operations with transport officers and police. And I've raised this with the Transport Minister and with the Police Minister. I got a long letter back from the Police Minister. I do thank him for his response on this, and there are some good measures there, and I acknowledge that. I had, however, also asked about joint operations with transport, and I don't believe that was addressed in the letter. I raised it with the Transport Minister, and he claimed that there were joint operations. Well, I've asked my police locally, and they would love to see joint operations. But it's the whistleblower transport officers who said to me, ask the question, we have been told not to pull over light vehicles, even though under legislation, as we understand, they've been empowered to do that for years. So why is this happening? The government must come clean. We must have the full resources of all agencies able to do their job. If there's a problem with the law, fess up. Tell us about what's wrong so that it can be fixed. But secrecy and silence and deliberate mistruths about what's happening from the government about using those resources has to be addressed. Hooning does destroy amenity, does destroy peace and the good amenity of local communities, but it's also dangerous. And I think what we've seen happen, certainly during COVID, there was a removal of police from our streets, onto the borders, looking after quarantine hotels, and it's good to see them back in our local communities when there were times when there were no police on the roads, and I'm not exaggerating. That's the word I got back from police, where they were stripped away from our communities to undertake these other duties. But we want to see them now fully resourced and able to do their job. Empower them. This government has a terrible track record in regard to resourcing and empowering police. The right laws, We've seen this also with juvenile justice issues. And yes, they're complex, but the approach of this government, the proof is in the pudding. And the breakout in youth gangs, children carrying knives, and the need for early intervention to address this in appropriate ways is still something that I believe we need to address at a younger age, unfortunately, because that's the word I'm getting back from my community, and it's happening in other communities as well. But to the Police Minister, I would ask you to talk to the Transport Minister. Get back the joint operations with police and transport. Let's see published the outcomes of those joint operations. They have to be run not but once but many times, because people will get the message when they see the action. They will get the message when they see the vehicles being pulled off the road and those who are endangering the lives of others having the full force of the law brought to bear. Because hooning is not a fun activity, it's dangerous, it's endangering the lives of other people. But we also have people driving the clunkers, the unregistered vehicles, those missiles of potential death on road that need to be pulled off the road. They need to ensure that people are only using safe, registered vehicles on our roads. So I'm calling on the Transport Minister and the Police Minister. Get together. The stories don't quite align with your correspondence. We need to see these operations take place. Hooning has to stop. We need to have our roads return to the safety of our communities. We need to respect the other drivers who are out there who are doing the right thing and allow them to be able to drive with the full understanding that police and transport officers are enforced and enabled to do their job to keep our community safe.